my people, I am so excited to show you how to make this men dashiki top with a turtleneck or with a bishop neck. Anyways, I'm going to start with showing you all the measurements I'm using: shoulder 20, chest. You can read the measurements yourself. I don't need to repeat it again. So the first measurement we're going to work with is our full length measurement. Now our full length measurement is 28. We are going to subtract 1 inch from that. That's going to give us 27. Then add 3 inches to that, and that will be 30. So the entire length you are going to cut is 30 inches. And the reason why we subtracted 1 from it is because for this top, the front is shorter than the back. You're going to see what I mean by the time we finish. And the extra 3 inches I added was for the seam allowance or the tucking in allowance at the end. Then on the fold, you go in by 3 to 3.5 inches, and then from the fold again, you take the shoulder measurement divided by 2. My shoulder is 20, divided by 2 is 10. Then I added 0.5 inches for seam allowance. You are drawing straight on the fabric, so please don't forget to add your seam allowance when you are taking in your horizontal measurements as well. Now for your armhole, you know the formula: shoulder divided by 2, right? Now because the front is shorter, you're going to subtract 2 inches from that. So shoulder divided by 2 is 10. Then you subtract 2, that is 8 inches, and then don't forget your 0.5 inches seam allowance as well. So my shoulder slant, or the shoulder slant for a male adult, is 1.5 and not 1 inch. You see that I mistakenly put 1 before, but it's actually 1.5. And then from that drop, I checked my 8.5 inches again to make sure that I did it correctly, because before I took it from my 1 inch. So then from there, you go down by 2 inches for your chest measurement. Now at that chest measurement, you divide your chest measurement, it was 46, divided by 4, and I have 11.5. My math skills won't fail me. I have 11.5. And also remember that you're going to put seam allowance on that side too. So before I put in my seam allowance, I'm going to measure that same 11.5 all the way to the bottom, and then I'm going to join the 2 points by a straight line. Then after that, I'm going to join it all the way to my my armhole line, and I have a nice 4 corner everywhere. Then from that point, I'm going to add 1 inch seam allowance all the way to the bottom, but 8 inches before the bottom of my fabric, I'm going to add 1.5 inches. This is for the slit. This is for the slit by the side of my shirt, and you're going to see what we mean by that slit later. Just follow. Make sure you follow from the beginning to the end. Don't run away. I keep telling people not to run away. All right, so I'm going to join my seam allowances together and the contour seam allowance that I put in the bottom part for my slit as well. So that means when you are folding fabric, for example, make sure that you have at least 4.5 inches extra for this allowance. Now the next thing is your armhole. Now at the corner of the joining for your armhole area, you go up by 1 inch and then draw a curve up. So I already did it off camera, but I'm showing you what it looked like on camera so that I don't skip that point or that part. Now I'm cutting out everything, and this is what it looks like after cutting out. Now I'm moving to the back. I want the back to have this nice design. The front had a nice design. I want the back to also have a nice design at the back, so that when this shirt land, they will ask who made the shirt. They will not know that it is Yele Stitches that makes female shirts, that decided to make male shirts today. Okay, so after I lay down my fabric flat, I'm going to make sure that I set it together, my front pattern on my back pattern. Then I'm going to measure 1.5 inches away from my front pattern, like this. 1.5 inches. You're going to see the reason why we do that also. And then you're going to trace the top of your back pattern with the front pattern, just the top of the back pattern with the front pattern. Then after that, you're going to add extra 3 to 4 inches allowance at the bottom of your back pattern. Remember I said that the front is shorter than the back. This is the reason why we are doing this, because we want the back to come and meet the front at the front. I don't know if you understand the language that I just spoke, but I feel like the more we look at it, the more you will understand it. So after adding that extra 4 inches, I dragged my front pattern downwards like this, and then I'm going to put like a 0.5 inches seam allowance mark on my front pattern, because I'm about to fold my back pattern over the front pattern in a way such that we can easily cut out our armhole. So I'm cutting that, that mark that I did before. I'm just going to cut it out so that it will be easy for me to fold it over. Now remember that I added the extra 1.5 inches. If I did not add that extra 1.5 inches, my back pattern shoulder will be shorter than that of the front. So that's the reason why I added that extra 1.5 inches. Then I'm going to pin both of them together like you are seeing me do right now. And after pinning, I'm then going to start from the edge and cut out my armhole again, because now we are going to then measure our correct 10.5 inches armhole. So from the top of that joining, from the very top or from the tip, I'm going to measure 10.5 inches, my shoulder, or sorry, my armhole length, and then I'm going to then mark it so that the armhole length for both the front and back will look exactly the same, even though the back armhole will be longer because it is folded in. So once it's folded in like that, I can get the correct armhole measurement for both the front and the back, and then I can now draw my armhole curve even more perfectly and then cut it out. So that means that you don't necessarily have to cut the armhole for the front separately from that of the back. You remember that I already cut out the armhole for the front before, but you don't necessarily have to do it. You can just make both of them together now. But just to make it simpler, I think cutting the front first is better than just waiting to cut both of them together. I feel like it might help. Anyways, for the neckline, from the tip of my joining also, I measured 5 inches downwards. So you can measure between 5 to 5.5 inches, and from the horizontal side I measured 2.5 inches. So you can measure between 2.5 and 3 inches depending on how big your client or your person is. So now I have my nice round armhole, and I'm going to measure it to make sure that it is as thick as the neck of the person, because I measure the neck of the person, I know what I expect. So I just measure it round. If you measure it and it's not as big as you want, you can always make that place wider. You can always increase it by, instead of using 2.5, you can use 3 inches, and try to manipulate it to make sure that it is as wide as your client's neckline. And now I'm cutting out all my traced chalk marks. I'm cutting out the neckline for the front and that of the back. And now we can move on to the next step. So the next step is cutting out what is called facing for both the front and for the back. That is, you are like cutting out like a quarter of the entire length of the shirt, like it's like you're cutting just the upper part. Let me just put it that way. So I folded my fabric like that, and I'm just going to cut out the facing for both the front pattern of the shirt and the back pattern of the shirt. This step is unnecessary, like it's not completely important, it's optional. Let me use that word. Don't let me say unnecessary, it's just optional, just to make the neck side neat. So you see the facing, you can make it anyhow you like, sew it like that, sew it straight, but for the purpose of this video I'm just sewing it straight, okay, both for the front and for the back. Okay, next step is cutting my sleeves. The sleeve length that I'm using is 21 inches, and I'm adding extra 3 inches allowance for the fold or the bottom. Now you see that I don't have enough fabric, so my fabric is not on fold, so my plan is to cut it and then stitch it together, but I'm going to show you what it looks like. So for the width of your sleeve, the first thing is to add your armhole length, which is 10.5 plus 1.5, which is 12 inches. I added extra 0.5 inches, but I'm going to sew both front and back together to make my sleeve pattern. Then the next thing after that, I measured the 11 inches that I needed from the top to the bottom, because I am trying to make that side that I'm drawing right now my fold. Okay, because I'm trying to make that side my fold, and the reason why I'm trying to make that side my fold is because I don't have enough fabric to actually fold it. So that is why I'm using that side as my fold, and I'll cut it into two and stitch together. I've already said this before, I don't know why I'm repeating myself. Okay, then from the edge of my sleeve part, I'm going to measure 5 inches, and then I'm just going to draw a nice curve from that point to the other point. Like, you can use your nice discretion. Make sure that the slant is not too scallopy and it is nice and great. You see that men's sleeve pattern is so much easier than women's own. There is no front or back pattern. It is very easy. So then after that, doing that, I'm going to then measure my wrist measurement. The wrist was 11, I'm dividing into 2, and that is 5.5, and I'm going to add extra seam allowance of about 1.5 inches. And then I measure the round sleeve also, so that I can get a perfect curve. At the round sleeve point, it was 12 inches from the top. I measured 7.5 inches and added my 1.5 inches seam allowance, and I'm going to join all my points together to make this line that I'm drawing, and I'm going to smoothen that sharp corner. I'm sure you see the sharp corner. Then I'm going to mark where my allowance starts from. At that point, I'm just going to draw it out so I know exactly where my allowance starts from, and then I'm going to fold it in like so I will know where the lines of my sleeve fall on perfectly. There is also there's a video on how to cut the sleeve for a regular sleeve. You can watch that video to understand this part that I'm doing right here, so I don't have to explain it over again. So after doing all of that, I'm then going to cut out my sleeve pattern. You can see that I'm going to cut this side as a straight line, but you don't have to do that if you have enough fabric. That side is supposed to be on fold, like it's supposed to be folded into two and not cut out like that. I'm only doing it because I did not have enough fabric. Now after doing all this, I'm then going to join my pattern. I'm going to join that opening. I'm going to join it together so it will be a full sleeve the way it's supposed to be, like some food. Now you see the end result, and this was what I wanted that design to look like. The design on the sleeves, I cut that part on purpose because I wanted the up and the down on the sleeve to look, like fire, hotter than fire. Give me some water. Okay, the water that I'm getting is from my steam iron, but I'm ironing it anyways. So after ironing it, I'm then going to top stitch it, or I'm going to make a French seam of it. That is, I'm going to fold that and then sew it. Now, so that part isn't too bulky, I'm going to cut out one of the inseam of it, one of the inseam or one of the seams or the seam allowance. I'm going to cut one of it, then I'm going to use the longer one to then fold on top of the shorter one, and that is what is known as a French seam. That is what you see on your jeans, the line of your jeans, or some of those nice places where even your shirts, like men's shirts, there's usually that part. And then I finished doing that, and you see the top stitch is a nice French seam, and then I folded the sides of it too and the bottom of it, because I wanted a neat look on the inside of my shirt. I've also used the interface on the front and also on the back. I have sewed it, and then I have the front and the back of shirt of it ready to go. Now the next thing is to add my plackets for the front of my shirt. Now to measure out my plackets, I'm going to use 8 inches by 5.5 inches. So 8 inches in length and 5.5 inches in width. You can make it longer than 8 inches if you want. You can make it 10 inches. It depends on how long you want the placket on your shirt to look. But I'm just using 8 inches placket, but you can always make it longer. So after cutting out my placket, the next thing now is to find the middle of my placket. So I found the middle. Should I call it a placket or a placket maker? Because it's the placket that comes out after the placket maker. So I'm finding the middle of my placket maker. We are making English here. So after joining the middle of my placket maker, I'm going to join both of them together in the middle like so. Then I'm going to pick up my front pattern again, after I've put in the facing and everything. I'm then going to find the middle of my front pattern also. I'm going to notch the middle or mark the middle, and then I'm going to place my placket middle to middle. The middle is going to join the middle, and make sure it is right side to right side. Don't put wrong side to right side. Make sure that the placket is facing from the right side of the placket to the right side of your shirt. Now from that middle mark, on either side of the middle mark, I'm still pinning on either side of the middle mark. I'm going to measure from 0.25 to 0.5 inches. So it depends on what you want. You can either measure 0.25 or measure 0.5, but for the purpose of this video, I'm using 0.5 inches on either side of my placket maker. Then I'm going to stitch from that middle all the way to about 7 inches, or you can stitch to 1 inch from the end of your placket. So if you made your placket 10 inches, you can stitch to 9 inches or 9.5 or 8.5 inches, depending on what you want. So I have finished stitching on that side. So I stitch the two sides and roundabouts, and the next thing is how I'm going to cut it. So 0.5 inches from the end of my placket, I just made that upside down V, because that is what I'm going to cut. So I'm cutting straight down, then I'm cutting my upside down V. If I'm rushing, if you need me to go over it again somehow, you can ask me to make a new video on placket making, or whatever it is that you didn't get. You can just ask me to make a new video focused on only that, because I know this video is very long and has so much information in it. So if you have anything like that, just put it in the comment section that Yele, please make a video on only placket, or Yele, make video on only how to cut a men's sleeve, or Yele, just show yourself anyhow you like to show yourself. Okay, so after doing all that, I'm ironing my placket area to make it smooth and clean and neat, and then I'm going to fold it 0.5 inches, then fold it on top of my sewing that I did before. If you don't understand what I'm saying, just look at what I am doing. Maybe what I'm doing will explain it better. So after I did the folding and the ironing, you see that the placket is already forming, is already looking very, very nice. So I'm tucking everything in at the back, also making sure that the back is all tucked in, making sure that the back is also neat, because you also want the back of the placket to be neat and not just the front of the placket. There are two different ways to make the placket anyways. You can tuck it in at the front, or you can tuck it in at the back. Either way is very good, but for this one I am tucking it in at the back, and I iron it some more. So after doing that, this is what it looks like. This is what the back area looks like, and that's what the front area looks like. You can get the vision that I'm trying to throw at you right now, don't you? I think you can see the vision, but this is what it looks like at the back. I'm going to stitch it at that bottom at the back, and then it's going to show at the front. So I'm going to stitch it at the front, and then it's going to reflect at that back that I folded in. So this is the front part that I'm going to stitch down, and I'm going to stitch it all the way up. And now I have finished stitching it. This is the this is the wrong side of my shirt. You see that both the wrong side and the right side of my shirt at the sleeve area is looking neat. That's because I did all the sewing inside of the fabric. I don't want any of the sewing to show. And then I sewed this place all the way to my side slits, and then I'm going to fold those into two, and that is the reason why we put extra inches, so that when we fold it into two, that's the part will be thicker than the rest of the clothes. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm just going to turn the bottom part with 0.5, then 1 inch all the way, both at the front and at the back, and then I'm going to attach my sleeves. I've made various videos on how to attach sleeves, so you should be able to attach the sleeve if you have been following the Yele Nation so far. So I'm going to go do that, and the next step we're going to do is the turtleneck. I have also made a video on how to make a bishop neck / turtleneck. This is the same pattern I used in that video, if you remember. So I just used that turtleneck to create my pattern. I added extra fabric in front and the back because that turtleneck pattern was small for this project. Then I also put stiffener inside of the fabric as well, and this is what my turtleneck looks like when I finish ironing it. Then at the bottom, I'm going to fold it in by 0.5 inches and iron as I'm folding by 0.5 inches. It gets why. The reason why I'm doing it like this is so that I'll be able to see the marking when I want to attach it to my shirt, because I don't want it to be more than 0.5 inches, and I want it to be easy when I want to top stitch it on my shirt as well. So I ironed it as you see me do now, and then after ironing it, I'm going to place it on my shirt. We are getting to the light at the end of the tunnel. Hallelujah. So the next thing now is to attach our turtleneck or bishop neck around this first row in right side to right side. I started from the back so that I can be able to top stitch easily at the front. After sewing that, I'm now going to fold it with that 0.5 inches that I folded before, and I'm going to top stitch it all the way around. You see, it is easier to top stitch it now because I already ironed the 0.5 inches, and then you can see that the shirt is looking really nice. After this stage, I added my buttonhole and my buttons. The video will be super long if I show you how I did that. I'm sure you can figure that out by yourself. You see the back, very lovely. So thank you very much for watching my channel. thank you very much for watching this particular video. If you like it, if it had added any value to you, like, share, subscribe, watch from beginning to the end. If you don't watch this ending, please go back to the beginning and watch again. Thank you very much for your time. I love you guys. Bye till next week. Bye.